All right, we are live. Happy Grateful Wednesday, everyone. Here's Dr. Aura Tovar with another Get Naked show for you. And today I have a very awesome guest that has this amazing project to tackle the one thing we've been dealing with, which is emotional health and freedom. So, welcome to the Get Naked show, Wendy Laylaw. It is my pleasure to have you here. So thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It's wonderful to be here.
Yes, it is. And especially after knowing that I was part of your summit and now I know what you're all about. And this is amazing. But I want you to introduce yourself in naked style to my audience. What would you want them to know about you? And can you please share?
Absolutely. Well, I love what you're doing, and I love the fact you're kind of taking everything and everyone back to their authentic self, really at the core. And that's kind of where, I mean, my story begins in the line of business that I do now, which is helping women with endometriosis and their emotional health heal their condition naturally. It starts when I ended up absolutely bedridden, almost near total organ failure, totally disabled for about 2.5 years. Debilitated by a number of different conditions. And talking about getting naked, my body literally kind of just said, that's it, we've had enough, And it was really tough. I had to wind up my property business, my real estate business. I'd had multiple surgeries, painkillers, drugs, and literally everything was just starting to kind of give up on itself. And when you're kind of stuck bed bound, something strange happens. You can't then busy yourself. You can't then sort of zoom around everywhere. You literally have to take stock of what's going on emotionally. And I guess that's where I started to learn about journaling, the act of, I don't know, you are an advocate of this as well, putting ink on paper every morning as I woke. And it really helped me start to figure out, why was my body not healing? If your body's always wanting to heal itself, why was I in such emotional distress and depression and questioning whether or not life was worth carrying on at points? Things were so black. And I think through the act of journaling, that really, really helped me to kind of identify what was going on subconsciously, consciously, what was happening with my emotions. Because as we know, all emotions are messengers. So what were my emotions telling me? How could I take back power and control? And through that very act of journaling, I mean, I'm obviously skimming over years here, but that very act of journaling really allowed me to connect to my inner core, my guidance, my instincts. And then through the act of that, I was able to connect to my body and figure out why my body wasn't healing, take back power and control. And I had like 7 or 8 different major conditions. I put them all into remission. And of course, on the pathway, the emotional aspect can be the toughest. I think you can physically get well, and it's hard for us, I think, to comprehend the emotional impact and how it affects us physically. So, I had to do a lot of work on that, and I'm so grateful for it, because I've learned so much about myself, and now I'm able to help thousands of women, tens of thousands of women all over the world, which is why I asked you to come on to my Ultimate Emotional Health Summit, because I completely appreciate, at the core of the work that I do, it's all about emotional health. And I think, man or woman, our conditioning and our cultures don't really embrace that so much. I think everybody gets physical health and everybody gets mental health, but they don't necessarily get emotional and even spiritual health. And emotions, for me, that's why I asked you to come on as one of my guests, because I know it's very kind of in line with what you do. So so I'm here today to share about the summit, and obviously about how there's going to be 14 amazing speakers, all talking about empowerment and emotional health, and how to get ultimate emotional health. And what does that mean? What does ultimate emotional health mean for everyone? It's going to be slightly different, but I'd like to think that ultimate emotional health at the core is you being content with yourself, being at peace with yourself, learning to connect in a non-judgmental, non-critical way, and learning to sort of have, dare I say, peace and joy and tranquility, and that develop compassion for yourself as well.
Oh, I love all of this. This is my cup of tea for sure. And thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your awesome summit. I know we're going to put the link below. It's free, you guys. It's going to be April 12th to the 14th. I'm going to put my thing already so you guys can see it. So you can sign up right then and there. I think it's going to be amazing. But going back to what you meant about, yes, everybody looks at the health aspect, and we do mind body connection, but these emotions that
Mm,
control our lives, that are constantly showing up, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because we all have them, and to believe that you're literally just following all the speaker's directions, they're going to just disappear, will be a lie. And this is the Get Naked Show, so I'm going to be really honest with you. Even me, I have weird emotions that show up
yeah,
sometimes on day-to-day basis, especially around my cycle. But you know what, this is me being wrong. Is
yeah,
how you deal with that, those friends when they show up, that is going to determine how those friends either stay along and just ruin your whole day, or
yeah.
you just learn from it and
Mm,
react in a better manner. So
yeah,
ultimate I mean, emotional health is such a big subject because we tend to just numb down our emotions. And I
mhm,
love what you mentioned about your journey and all the things that got healed and how you started journaling. So I do want to ask you, what was that thing that made you maybe wake up to stop ignoring your emotions and actually make friends with them, or actually acknowledge their presence there?
yeah,
What was that thing, if you can recall, Wendy? Because I think this is a big one for everyone, because everyone has emotions, right? But we have millions of ways to numb them down, and we
mhm,
have mastered those millions of ways,
yeah,
right? We are numb most of the time, and it takes sometimes a huge event for us to wake up, but sometimes we wake up gradually. And I
yeah,
love to ask, when people find that, okay, I need to pay attention because this roller coaster is really driving me nuts. What
yeah.
was it for you, Wendy?
Well, I think it was that dark night of the soul where I was literally in so much pain, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And I don't know if I want to carry on. I don't know if I can carry on. And you get to that point where you just think, you can't keep going on like that. And something has to change. And I think when you're all in your head, and you feel like your body's going to implode on itself, and you feel like, what do I do with everything that's happening in my head and my heart and my body? I guess I was lucky to start writing. I literally started writing, and I just was writing my despair. I was writing my feelings. I was writing how sad and depressed, and writing whether or not my family would be better off without me. And of course, what happens with the writing process is allows the blocks to move through. It allows the tears to cry, and I recognize that those tears at the time were starting to water the seeds that I was just wanting to plant. And that's how I used to look at it. Like, okay, there's some blocks inside me. There's things that have obviously gone on in my past that I've tried to run away from, that I knew that I needed to sort of pay attention to. So for me, it was really kind of, I got frightened at how I didn't want to carry on, and I knew I needed to do something different. So the very act of hearing myself and reading the words and processing that really woke me up to, there has to be another way, because I recognized that my body had literally gone on strike. It was just not computing anymore. It was just like not functioning. My mitochondria levels were so low that they're almost at 5%. And as a doctor, like, you need at least a 300% mitochondria to function effectively, and your organs at 70%. So I was at 5%, or I was really, really ill. And I think the act of journaling, it's so funny. You can be in that really ill physical state, and some part of you just doesn't see it somehow. It is bizarre. So literally I was forced to kind of wake up and pay attention, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be here now. And the act of journaling was a safe way for me to hear, because sometimes we can take on other people's voices and other people's ideas of ourselves, don't we? We take it on like a coat, we put it on, and then we don't ever question whether what they've said about us is true. And I think that journey of writing, really, I was scared when I started to do it, because I thought, oh my goodness, what if everything everybody said about me is true? And what I uncovered from the journaling was, actually, I'm quite a nice person. They were just putting all their toxicity and nasty stuff on me, and I was taking it in. Because I was such a sensitive person, I was taking it in and on as my own. So the act of writing just allows you that. You said earlier, it's about how do you separate from your emotions and recognize them from what they are, as messengers? Because basically, I believe all emotions are messengers. So how do you understand the message of the emotion? is by becoming the observer of it. So how do you become the observer? The very act of writing helps you almost become your own best friend, like the best friend you always wished you had, that was caring and kind and comforting and compassionate. And of course, when you write and there's all sorts of emotions, some of those emotions you might not like. They might be, in inverted commas, unpleasant emotions, or there might be bad emotions at some point. I don't think there's any good or bad emotions. There's just emotions. And once you start to pay attention to them, you're able to observe them, kind of like stepping one step back and observe them and notice what triggers an emotion. Notice what evokes an emotion. Notice that you will pass through an emotion. It just takes time, you know. And what I found as well is that it was invariably this very strong emotions that frightened me the most had some origins from when I was little, when I was a little girl and I didn't have the words and the vocabulary. And that's kind of really the power of journaling. And I'm a huge, huge advocate. In fact, I joked with someone the other day about journaling. I said, I think on my tombstone is going to be Wendy, the journaling queen, because I am a huge advocate. Everyone that I work with, you know, is that is part of the tools that they must do every day, because the power of it is just that sort of connection with. And this is why we're encouraging people to join the summit and a 21-day challenge to do just that, to learn the beauty of journaling, starting small, just to kind of almost be like a release valve on the emotions, just a little bit, because sometimes we can be scared of emotions if they're strong.
Yep.
But this is why we're kind of doing it in this way, to encourage people in a very safe, secure way to kind of just tap in to what they're feeling inside. And it's never as bad, and I know you'll agree with me, it's never as bad as we imagine when we're full of the emotion. But if we can put it on paper, it gives us the perspective that we need to kind of move through.
Oh yeah, I love all this. I've always said, journaling is getting to know you, and
Yeah.
if you do not take the time to get to know you, how do you expect others to do? We all sometimes expect, and I do a lot of relationship work and self love, and we expect of others what we do not give ourselves to ourselves, right?
Totally.
We expect our husband or significant other to love us the way that we don't even love ourselves, because we haven't taken the time to date ourselves, to get to know ourselves, and journaling is a huge part. I love journaling, right? So I have notebooks everywhere. So journaling is such a big, it's almost like a date with yourself, and you gotta, that love. I do a lot of mirror work as well. Louise Hay, I think, was one of my biggest influencers back in the day, and that constant connection, so you can acknowledge that yes, there is feelings, and it's okay. It's almost, yes, you become the observer. You're not those feelings. Just because you had a 20-minute breakdown, that's not who you are. That's something that you experienced at that moment because of triggers. That's if you would take the time to cleanse the triggers. If we do, like I take my clients through the Get Naked process, so we can take and learn tools that we can use, as triggers are going to keep coming, because they're not going to stop unless you move to a mountain and decide to just like and not do anything. We're going to be exposed to triggers, to stresses, physical, chemical, and mental. And that's why these are just tools. And I love this summit because it's just like a sneak peek into what is possible. And it's just giving us, don't be fearful of it. It's just, oh my God, get to know a new friend. And that new friend will be you. But get to know it and it's just like learning how to speak to a child, right? Learning to speak the same thing, just like you mentioned. And I love that, because you mentioned a lot of our things are from our childhood and from our past that we just haven't taken the time to heal, because we keep putting dirt under the rug, and we just don't want to acknowledge it until it explodes, and you have that dark night of the soul in which you're thinking about ending it all. And so many people, whether you want to admit it here or not, have felt that way. And I want to tell you, to those people, that it's okay. It's normal. Most of us have had that moment. It is how you react to those moments and to those emotions that might determine if those linger for a long time, or you're able to handle them, become friends with them, and actually give them a space that they can explore, that they can just expand, release, because that's what journaling is. I love it. Tell me what else is on that ultimate emotional health summit, what else can people expect? Because I do want them to sign up. It's for free, you guys, and it's going to be good for your heart and soul. So please sign up with that link.
Well,
And yes, you get
I
to
think
hear
that.
me, but so many others. Please tell me,
Well,
Wendy.
that's it. I mean, I think the reason I brought all you brilliant people together was because you have so much of your own story. You've overcome your own trials and tribulations, and I think, and it fits in beautifully, like with what you stand for. I'm all about authenticity. It's all about people being real. I think what this whole COVID situation has really highlighted is how much people have loved seeing the TV presenters and other people with their cats walking across the front of the screen with their bottoms and, in the camera and stuff, that, the polished air, has had to kind of go to one side. I think a lot of us have very strong perfectionists these days. We feel we have to be perfect, our body, our thinking, our feelings, our emotions, our home, our everything. And that there's nothing wrong in trying to be the best version of yourself. But when it becomes to the point of, self-destruction, that's when emotionally that can really affect. So I wanted to bring in speakers who've had their own trials and tribulations, that they've been very honest and open, like you were, about your own, and your interview was amazing. It was beautiful because you really vulnerably shared, some of the trials and tribulations that you've gone over. And I know on my journey, when I was at my lowest, I always found it so inspiring when people were open and honest, talking from a place of scars rather than talking from the wounds, but, people talking from about their scars, how they got the scars, how they overcame it. So not only did they move through whatever distress they were going through, and it's invariably, if you look at the life cycle of a caterpillar, it has to go through a massive transformation before it can actually fly. And most of us, I know I was, before I got very, very ill, I felt I was crawling like the caterpillar along through all the dirt and the mulch and the leaves, barely getting through the day before I felt very, very ill. And of course, I'd had my endometriosis for about 33 years. And then trying to get up that tree to turn into a cocoon, that was pretty hard going. And most of us are kind of, how do we even get to that transformation point? So the idea of the summit was to bring, some brilliant people together. Again, it's for free. You can come on and you can listen. You actually, each day, all you have to do is register and turn up on the day that it's free. And what's wonderful is you'll be able to hear from people, from their own stories. And it's, I ultimately, the core of what I do is want to inspire and empower. And I know that you do the same. It's to say, look, if you are feeling this way, it's okay. It will pass. And here's some tools and some top tips to help and see what works for you. Because, we're not robots. We and what works for one might not work for somebody else. So this is why I brought such a nice cross section of people with heart, people with a story, and people who are obviously very, very generous as well. We've got over almost £3,000 worth of bonuses for people if they even join the 21-day challenge as well, which is just a ridiculously cheap early bird price, because I know we're the same. We're so impassioned and want to help people if they're at a point in their lives where they just think, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I can carry on. And I don't know if anyone else knows how I'm feeling. Like, we get how you're feeling. We've been there. We've been in that sticky treacle, not sure if it's going to drown us or whether we're going to get out. So this is why we do what we do now, isn't it? Just to help people, kind of men and women, because this, we do what we do because we understand how refreshing it is when people are authentic and they speak from their heart rather than speaking from a top level, speaking down to people. Nobody wants to be dictated to. You want to go along with someone's story and pull out from that what's going to keep you inspired on yours. And this is why the summit's been designed in the way it has, that people can come and watch it for free. And equally, I'm going to challenge people and say, come on, incentivize you, come into this challenge, a very safe place where for 21 days, I'll teach you these brilliant tools very slowly. We start with tiny ant-sized steps so that you get a feeling of win, so that you don't feel overwhelmed. You don't feel that you can't do it, because I start so small and then build each day, that you then start, as you were saying, to think, oh, actually, I can listen to myself. And oh, actually, I'm not as overwhelmed as I thought, or that anxiety has a reason behind it, or that anger, or just becoming more comfortable with who they are at their core.
Oh, I love it. So please sign up. It's free, you guys, and it will give you a window into health and peace and inner love, which is your true key to happiness, because I've done a course and, how to get the love you want. And most people think it's going to come from a person. I'm going to tell you it's not. It comes from you.
Absolutely.
You can tap into that. You have your own happiness source to grab every single time you need it, every single time you're faced with the stresses of life. And yes, it is a process, but if we can go tidbits and you can just do one step. I always say, I had this teacher in school that taught us radiology, and he would always say the difference between the winners and the losers is just one more step. It's just taking one
Absolutely.
step and then just going further, and one step anybody can take. And one of the steps that we can take here is just sign up for the summit, check out the 21-day challenge, and you might surprise yourself with getting to know that beautiful soul that lies within you, and you can become best friends with it. Because if you don't treat yourself great, how do you expect others to treat you, and become your own best friend? You wouldn't treat your best friend meanly, but we tend to do that to ourselves
Yeah.
constantly. So
And I think
developing.
that's what's great about what you do, because even in the summit, people are going to come sign up for the summit. They're going to be like you. They're going to be people who are like, I want to do something different, and I'm scared. I don't know how to do it. And that's it. You're going to not only come and help yourself, but you're going to be around like-minded people, and that's very rare, isn't it? And this is why we've got together on this, because we're so we feel we've been in the trenches, we've been in the dark nights of the soul, and if we can help shorten that process or even avoid that process, most importantly, then it makes everything worthwhile. But to come together with supportive, caring, compassionate, like-minded people, it can be very uplifting at a time when you feel very down on yourself.
It is true. And it is, again, safe. I love that you use that word. And it's just like I've been doing in my chiropractic office for the last 23 years. I feel the biggest thing that I can give my clients is hope. Is hope that that it can change. There's hope that it can be different. That just because you had a horrible day today, tomorrow doesn't mean the same. It's just because you had a horrible relationship doesn't mean that the next one will be the same. Doesn't mean, with everything. And it's just because you haven't been able to deal with your anxiety or with your depression does not mean that that is your ultimate diagnosis. So I feel that hope is something that we can indeed
I think
do with
hope
this
is
summit.
so important. And this is where the journaling's great, isn't it? Because you can really start to hear your dreams. You can hear your hopes. You can hear your aspirations. You can hear your fears. And ultimately find the meaning for what's been happening. Because maybe everything's been happening for you rather than to you. And we don't quite know yet. But when you start the act of journaling, you start to go, do you know what? That was a horrible experience. But this is what I learned from that experience. And invariably, if people have had, a terrible time or tragic times or trauma, it's because they're being almost trained for a future purpose. And that's, for me, it just feels very important. That's why the ultimate emotional health, if you can get in behind the emotions and learn that they're okay, you're a human being, you're not a robot, they've got some messages in behind them, and hear from these brilliant speakers just their gift of their journey, that can be very empowering.
Oh, yeah. Nothing about the journey is there extra, I always say. Is
Yes.
all there for a beautiful reason, even if it sucks. So forgive me if you're saying that, because some things happen to us sometimes that is like horrible. And we're like, why?
Yeah.
And there's as a beautiful grace behind it if we just take the time to see it. So I love having you here, Wendy. Before we go, I always like to give some naked tips to my audience so they can start using these tools. And I'm sure we're going to get plenty in the summit. But you have mentioned journaling. What other two things do you use in your daily life that keep you grounded?
Awesome question. Well, the other thing is, again, on my journey was that journaling was number one, but I also do meditation and mindfulness every afternoon. So even just before coming on here, and I'm not talking about, as we were saying earlier, sitting half naked up a hill and elevated off the ground and going hum. I'm talking about lying on my bed with my eye mask on, headphones in, and lying flat and listening to some guided meditation or mindfulness. And it's like we can't use our mobile phones when the battery's flat. So the same thing applies to our bodies and our brain. We're such fast paced now in our society. So that is number two. And number three is painting. I do lots of oil paintings and things now. So really connecting with my right hand and brain and inner child, if you like. And of course, going out into nature. There's nothing beats being grounded in and around greenery or by the sea or nature, just to help you kind of remember just to breathe in the moment of where we're in, because we can sometimes be perplexed about the past and fretting about the future, but we don't actually live in the moment. So these are the tools that keep me very grounded.
Oh, I love that share. So, yes, people get to journal. Definitely take some 5 times out of meditation. At least listen to your breath a few times a day. That is a good start. And yes, do some painting, some free writing. That is also gets the right brain. Don't analyze everything you do and say
Yeah.
and write. Don't overanalyze. That gets the left brain, just engage, and you don't want that. So stay free, people. Stay naked and join the Ultimate Emotional Health Summit. The link is right there. We put that link. That'd be even better. So it's free as for you, and it's filled with speakers that just want to help you and let you know that there is indeed hope and tools you can start using right away from your comfortable home. So I'm so grateful to Wendy for making this and for inviting me to be a speaker. I'm super honored. So thank you so much. Thank you, Wendy, for being part of my Naked Show. I will post this on my podcast. If you want more information, message me. I'm going to tag her on Facebook as well, or go to the ultimateemotionalhealth.com and sign up for free. So
Awesome.
thank you, Wendy.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
so
Thank you
much.
for having me on. It's lovely to be here.
Same, same. Everyone, have yourself a blessed, grateful Wednesday and go get naked yourself. Start with one step. Ciao.